All right. So we're going to solve cube root equations. Okay, so we were graphing them, transforming them, well, you have cubic and cube root equations, but the only ones that we are going to solve are cube root. Okay, so these are the steps, and they look very familiar. Step 1, isolate the cube root. What is that? That's anything under your little cube root symbol. Okay, that is what we're trying to get to. All right, and then once we get that isolated, you cube both sides. Right? Doesn't this sound familiar? Instead of squaring, we cube. Okay, and then we solve. So what we're left with is either quadratic, we know how to solve those, make equal 0, factor solve, or it's linear, we get the variables on one side, constant on the other. Now there's one super important thing, super important, that we have to remember, and this is a good thing. There are no, underlining, no extraneous solutions. So that means we don't have that step 4, that check step. Okay? Now you can check your answer to make sure you're right. I mean, I would definitely advise you to do that, but you're not checking for extraneous, and that's because the domain and the range of the cube root function is all real numbers. Okay? But I will tell you, the answers to these can sometimes be weird, okay? And that's okay. It's just because of the shape of the function. Okay, so here's our first example. Let's solve this one. Cube root of 3x plus 5 equals 4. Okay. So we have to be really intentional about, knowing what's under the cube root. So on this one, all of this is under the cube root. Okay? So step 1 is done. Step 2, cube both sides. So we grab the left side and cube it, and we grab the right side and cube it. Okay? Now when you cube a cube root, they cancel out. All we're doing is unlocking the stuff inside the cube root. Okay? So now the stuff inside gets to come down. But over here, I have just a 4. So I have to figure out what 4 cubed is. And remember, 4 cubed doesn't mean 4 times 3. It means 4 times itself 3 times. 4 times 4 times 4. And you could type that in Desmos or whatever, but it's 64. Because 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. Okay, now I have no more cube root. I'm at step 3. I have to decide, am I looking at something quadratic or linear? And this is linear, right? Because there's no x squared. So that means I want to get x by itself. Okay, so minus 5. 3x equals 64 minus 5 is 59. And we can divide by 3. 59 over 3. Now you might think like, oh, that's weird. I know. Some of these do have really weird answers. Okay? Now, you can check yourself. Like, you can. So, like I could do, hey, is the cube root, oops, see the RT gets there, okay, of 3 times 59 over 3 plus 5, does that equal 4? And yeah, it does. Okay, so we're right. Okay. So don't be afraid of crazy fraction or even sometimes very large number answers. You got to think, when you're cubing both sides, that's a lot of multiplication. So your numbers could get big really quickly. All right, let's try another one. I want to give you one of every kind of problem that you're going to see, okay? So 2 times the cube root of 5x plus 1, and then minus 2. Where is my highlighter? This will work. Okay, so this one's got a lot of stuff going on, but you want to find your cube root. Okay? That is what I want to isolate. So the other things need to go. And we always undo addition, subtraction before multiplying or dividing. So first, we add this 2. Then you have 2 cube root 5x plus 1 equals, and 10 plus 2 is 12. Okay, remember, I still don't have my cube root isolated. This is what I want by itself. That 2 in front is being multiplied, so we have to divide. This is all part of step 1, isolating the cube root. Now we have cube root of 5x plus 1 equals 6. Okay, now our cube root is isolated, and I want to get to the stuff underneath, and I can't get to the stuff underneath until we cube both sides. Okay? That's going to unlock the cube root. So cubing the left side just unlocks the stuff underneath, the 5x plus 1. And then on the right side, well, we have to figure this out. The number 6 to the power of 3, which is 6 times 6 times 6. I know, that's scary. It's gone now. Okay? It was there for a second. It's gone now. And that's 216. Okay? 6 to the power of 3 is 216. Okay, and this only has a power of 1 on our x, so this is linear. So we just get x by itself. (5x) equals 215. And then you divide by 5. 215 divided by 5. 43. Yeah, because 5 times 40 is 200, and 5 times 3 is 15. Add them together, it's 215. Okay. So this one, the answer is 43. Okay? So far, very similar to what we did before, right? Okay. Now, what if we choose to have a problem where our cube root is written in a different way? Okay, because we are going to see that. So this will be example 3. Okay, so I just wrote x squared to the 1/3 power. So that 1/3 is an exponent, okay? Okay. Oh, I didn't finish the equation. There needs to be an equal sign. Equals 0, sorry. Equals 0. Okay. Anybody know what 1/3 as an exponent means? I bet you could guess. Cube root, exactly. So x to the 1/3 is the same thing as the cube root of x. Okay, so there's a little hint there. Okay? So when you see a problem coming to you with 1/3 as exponents, all you have to do is rewrite it with cube roots. Okay? So whatever is in the parentheses is what's going to be under your cube root. So this would be cube root of x squared minus cube root of 81 equals 0. Okay, so don't think that we can just draw one big cube root. That minus sign is separate, right? These are separate. Okay, notice we have two separate cube roots. They need to live on opposite sides of the equal sign. So separate the cube roots. Separate the cube roots. One on the left side of the equal sign, one on the right. So you want it to look like this. Cube root of something equals cube root of something. Okay? They can't live on the same side. So why don't we add this one? That'll be easier, right? Plus cube root of 81. What people want to do is they want to get ahead of themselves and start cubing. You can't do that until you have at least one of these by itself. So now we're looking at cube root of x squared equal sign, and then 0 plus cube root of 81. It's just cube root of 81. Okay. Now I got cube roots by themselves. We can go on to cube both sides. Cube the left, cube the right. And since they're both cube roots, all we're doing is unlocking the stuff underneath, right? Leaving us with x squared equals 81. And that is not linear, right? That one is quadratic. Okay? So this one in particular, though, we can get it equal to 0. We could minus 81, or this is already set up for us to just square root, right? How do I undo x squared? Square root. Plus or minus square root of 81. Now, why am I doing the plus or minus? That's the square root property, right? This, if we need to remember, oh, that's the square root property. That says if I'm taking the square root in an equation, I need to take the positive and negative square root. Okay, but that'll be plus or minus 9, right? And we don't have to worry about one of those not working. There's no extraneous solutions. I suppose I could have done plus or minus 9 in my solution set, but I just wanted to make sure we remembered that those were separate. Okay? Okay, what questions can I answer for you? What questions do you have so far? Okay. I have one more to do with you, and then I have one to give you to try. Okay? All right, last one I'm going to do with you. Cube root of x squared plus 3x equals cube root of 28. Okay. So we've got separate cube roots. That's good. They're living on opposite sides of the equal sign. At least one of them is isolated. Actually, both of them are. So we can proceed right to cubing. And then we'll undo those cube roots so they're all gone. X squared plus 3x equals 28. Okay, so underneath all this, we had a quadratic. It revealed itself, now we got a quadratic. This is quadratic. Remember, if you got an x squared in your equation, it's quadratic. Okay? And we need this to equal 0. Everything on the same side as your x squared. So this minus 28 needs to come over here. So then we're looking at x squared plus 3x minus 28 equals 0. Okay, now what do we do with this? We factor and solve. Okay, so if you need to draw a box to help you factor, you can do that. The one on your assignment, you're probably going to want to draw a box for, so I'll draw a box just so we remember how to use it. Okay. So the first term goes in upper left. The last term goes into bottom right. And then we have to figure out what goes along the sides. So we know this one's x and x. And we know whatever goes here and here have to multiply to negative 28. And then we also know that these boxes, when we add them together, they're going to have to make 3. Okay, so I need numbers that multiply to negative 28, but when I add them, I get 3. Anybody know what numbers those are? It'll be negative 4 and positive 7. So it doesn't matter where they go, right? And then I fill out the rest of my sides. Okay, so these are the factors, right? They're not the answers, they're the factors. So I have one factor that's x plus 7 and another one that's x minus 4 equals 0. I need that equals 0 because that's the reason this whole thing works. Okay, now remember, quick way to get your answers? It's just going to be the opposites of these. So you set each equal to 0. So x plus 7 equals 0. Minus 7 minus 7. X is negative 7. X minus 4 equals 0. Add 4. Add 4. X is 4. And we could check them if we wanted to be sure we're correct, but they're both going to be solutions because there's no extraneous solutions, so they just go in our solution set. There are 2 answers to that one. Okay? The only time you're going to get 2 answers is if after you cube both sides you get a quadratic. Okay? If you don't, if it's linear, you're going to get 1 answer. Okay? All right, let me give you one to try yourself to see how see if you get it. So we'll call it a you try problem. Okay. Negative 2 cube root of 5x plus 4 equals 8. Okay, so you take a minute, jot that down, and try it. I'll give you a hint. The answer is a fraction. So if you get a fraction, that is correct. Okay, so if you're not done yet, I mean, feel free to keep going, but I'm about halfway through here. Have to isolate your cube root. So you've got a -2 times the cube root, and then you have this +4. Got to undo the +4 first. 8 minus 4 is 4. Now, how do I undo a times of -2? Divide by -2. Divide by -2. 4 divided by -2 is -2. Now my cube root is by itself, so now I cube. Okay? Now, how do I cube -2? What does that mean? That means -2 times -2 times -2. Okay? I didn't see a lot of people have their calculator open, which is fine. So I'll just do this if I was doing this without a calculator. -2 times -2 is a +4. And then a +4 times a -2 is -8. Okay? So this is -8 on the right side. And we've unlocked the cube root on the left side. Now what I'm left with is linear, so all I have to do is get x by itself. So we divide by 5. And -8 divided by 5, well, that doesn't divide evenly. So we just leave it as -8 over 5. So -8 over 5 is the right answer. Okay? You do okay?